Perfect. Thank you. Well, welcome again to the TCDSU USI Coiste Gnó Hustings. So basically, the way we're going to get kicked off is that all candidates will be given minutes to have a speech. Close the door, yeah. All candidates will be given 3 minutes to speak, and then we'll open questions to the floor. If you would like to anonymously submit a question, you can do so by filling out this form here, or you can put time for questions. But yeah, that's pretty much how we're going to get going with the Dublin region. With you, Nathan, if you're ready to get going. Good stuff. So give it over to Nathan Murphy from TCDSU, who is running for Vice President of the Dublin region. Yeah, take it away then, Nathan.
Perfect, thank you. Hi guys, so as I said, my name is Nathan Murphy. I am the current Vice President for Community and Citizenship in DCU, and I'm running to be the next Dublin Regional Officer. So some of my experience, I've been a SPAC officer in DCU for the past year. I led the Yes USI campaign in DCU. I've been very active in activism and political activism for a number of years. So I wanted to get more involved this year, and that's why I decided to run for Dublin region. So one of my main manifesto points is part-time officer support. So obviously, a lot of part-time officers don't get the support and the training that they need. They're some of the most hardworking individuals in the back of any student union. So I want to offer in-person training to part-time officers, whether that is going to the college, like going to Trinity and giving it to your part-time officers, or if it is organising a day in a college in the Dublin region and getting everyone out there. I also link up certain part-time officers with other ones in the region. So sustainability part-time officer in Trinity with the sustainability officer in TU Dublin. And if there isn't a part-time officer in the region, I'll look at working with the other regional officers at linking in with them as well and trying to just create links so part-time officers feel included. Another one, kind of big one, is commuter students. So obviously Dublin is very heavily commuter student based. So I want to keep lobbying the government to keep the 50% reduction in travel fees, because that's looking to end at the end of this year. I also want to lobby for free public transport for college students, as it is one of USI's manifesto. USI's policy points. I want to kind of make sure that USI is pushing for more supports for commuter students, as commuting shouldn't be a barrier to education. We see people commuting from Galway, Cork, Wexford now to college because of the accommodation crisis. On accommodation, in my role, I work very heavily with search for accommodation and who struggle with accommodation. So I want to keep pushing the digs legislation that USI are pushing for. I want to make sure that there is protection in place for people in digs. I also want to look at purpose-built student accommodation, what the government are doing in relation to that. I think we should move away from the privatisation of purpose-built student accommodation, as it wouldn't be for profit. Students don't need gyms, cinemas, bowling alleys. They just need somewhere to sleep when they're going to college. Obviously, engagement is a huge issue in USI. Certain students don't know what USI is, so I want to kind of be on the ground in colleges at least once a month, if not twice a month. And I want to make sure students actually recognise what USI is, who they are, and what they're doing for them. I have a lot more in my manifesto, but I can't obviously get through all of it in 3 minutes. But I'm open to any questions, and if anyone wants to learn more, my Instagram is Nathan4Dublin.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Right, just going to check the form now to see if we have any questions. And we don't, I've been informed. Does anyone have a question on the floor? Go with Gabby first, Jenny, then Bev. And Nathan, you'll have 1 minute to answer each question. That's okay. Perfect. So Gabby, do you want to go first?
Hi, so Dublin is currently the most expensive city to live in Europe, but much of USI's campaigning and lobbying and policies are passed on national levels, but Dublin might require very specific things, such as, for instance, the introduction of a Dublin-specific living wage, which there doesn't seem to be that much appetite for within USI. How will you address and work with the issues that are specifically faced by Dublin as an incredibly expensive city?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know Dublin is in its very own situation. As you see with Cultural Death Dublin motion last year, there was quite a bit of hot debate and topic on that. I do know that obviously the living wage, livingwage.ie do a specific one for Dublin, and it's broken down, and it's an extra 100 to 200 euro a week that Dublin people need. So it is something that I would look at lobbying, especially being like, look, whilst there needs to be a living wage nationally, there shouldn't be minimum wage, be a living wage. Dublin is in its own specific situation where more money is needed for students because it is very expensive to live in Dublin. Very expensive to live, socialise, just be in Dublin.
Thank you, Nathan. Then Jenny, you're next.
Yes, my question is in relation to your PTO training day. How would you ensure that students who perhaps are unable to make the day due to working commitments receive the same level of support?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's the thing. I want to continuously give part-time officers training throughout the year. It's not going to be a once-off Zoom call that's been done in previous years for the whole country, for the whole island. I want to make sure that all PTOs are getting the training that they need, whether it is someone from a comms PTO background who would need more specific training on that. I would look at linking them in with other officers in the region, other officers in the country, and get them involved. I'm also looking at creating a part-time officer working group in USI for National Council to get them more involved there. But I want to make sure that if there is specific part-time officers that can't make a day, I will come back out and give them the training. I will be around campuses. I don't want to kind of just sit back and be like, PTOs are fine. They do need more training. And PTOs are kind of what drive the union, the most passionate people in the union. They're doing it out of the kindness of their own hearts, helping students, and we should be rewarding them with proper training and the attention that they need.
Perfect. Thank you there, Nathan, just on time. And then finally, Beverly, do you want to do your question?
Beverly.
That's what the Zoom said.
Yeah, I can't change it. Okay. So Nathan, my question is, Trinity is one of the Dublin region's largest MMOs. Okay, so it often doesn't require the extra hands that smaller unions do from the regional VPs in terms of providing training or helping out at campus events. And so usually the VP only comes for attending council meetings. Just wondering, what ideas do you have for keeping these sort of self-sustained larger unions engaged in the campaigns of USI if you're not regularly going to be required on campus?
Yeah, no, definitely. I do think smaller colleges do need a bit more attention, but also with bigger colleges, there's more students. Students aren't engaging as much. Like you see with smaller colleges, they have great voter turnout for certain cases. Larger colleges don't have that same engagement. We've seen it in DCU with the SUSI. There's loads of students who don't know what USI is. I want to be on the ground in colleges, making sure students are informed what USI is. If it's getting a coffee with the president, walking around talking to random students, if it's sitting somewhere, I don't want to be hidden away up in an office doing little office work kind of for USI. I want to be on the ground with students, making sure they know what USI are fighting for, they know what USI are doing for them.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Nathan. And do you want to take 30 seconds just to summate your position and why people should vote for you then?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, so obviously the regional officers are in a very specific position because we don't have policy work. We kind of help the policy officers, but I think a big thing with the regional officer is engagement, trying to get students engaged, trying to get students to attend protests, trying to get just students to actively be active in college, not just going to classes, whether it's engaging with extracurricular activities, making sure they're enjoying the full experience of college. And that's something that I want to try and do this year.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nathan. And that was Nathan Murphy then from TCDSU, running for Vice President of the Dublin region. So next up, constitutionally, or on the website either way, is Vice President for Postgraduate Affairs, but it's been a request made that we put that later just for time constraints of one of the candidates. So next up, we will call on any candidates from last John Delga. I don't think anyone's here for that. No. Vice President for Campaigns is next. So we have Zaid, Aoife, and Kieran, and the only person I can see here is Zaid. Yeah, so Zaid, do you want to take away then 3 minutes? Just sorry, Christine, sorry. Sorry. There we go. Sorry, I didn't see you there. So we have Christine and Zaid. So we'll do it as it appears on the website. So we'll let Zaid go first, then Christine. 3 minutes just to give a speech about why you'd like to be elected. your manifesto points, and then we'll open questions up to the floor. And we have 1 minute to answer questions, and then finally a 30-second summation. So Zaid, you want to take it away then?
Thank you, Chair. Well, hello everyone. Zaid El-Barouthi here, running for Vice President for Campaigns. As some of you might know, I'm a fourth-year law student here at TCD, and I started my studies here 4 years ago when I moved over from Jordan. Also the International Students Officer at TCDSU and the chair of the TCD BDS Implementation Group. Mainly this year, my work focused on issues of immigration, inherent systematic issues in immigration for international students, decolonization of syllabi, and getting Trinity to divest 2.5 million euros from the war industry, which we did. I think it's everyone's right here to know why I didn't run the first time around, and that's mainly because I was managing a presidential campaign here at TCDSU, and that was the right thing to do for the student body at the time. We've won that, and I found a bit more arguments to make on my thesis. So that's why we're here. I want to point out to a few issues with the role before I dip into my manifesto points, and that is mainly what your vote tonight will mean and what standard we are put against next year in terms of the student movement and the USI image. USI this year did a walkout, possibly one of the most attended direct actions taken by USI, but certainly not the most successful. And we didn't see any issues of engagement. We didn't see a low turnout. You know, the usual excuses weren't there. But we also didn't see a long-term plan or any strategizing with escalation strategies in case a goal is not met by a certain time period. So I think this leaves us with a message that we sent to the student body that despite showing up to a protest or a walkout or a direct action, nothing will be taken to capitalize on that effort and actually reach a goal if a goal is set in the first place, which I don't even think the cost of living campaign with USI set. So that is pretty much the standard we're setting for ourselves. I want to convince to give their faith back in our campaigns. And a couple of ways to do that is, first of all, to include students at the planning stages of the campaigns and not be merely an email with a plan to MOs to then mobilize students. The way this will happen is by getting a group working over the summer on a year-long campaign plan, devised into stages, with goals for each stage and an escalation strategy if that goal is not met. Increase the number of ordinary students sitting on the campaign strategy committee. We have seen how little students get input into campaigns. And if we actually want students to engage with us, we must make USI an organization that is able to be held to account by students. And I think the way to do that is to have a plan and then show how we performed on it. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Just on 3 minutes there. Thanks very much, Zaid. And then Christine, do you want to go ahead for your 3-minute speech?
Hold on 1 second. Díomh is Misha Christine Vahuna, agus bhálam a bheith mar de lasú brand an factus san Aontas na Maclean in Éireann. Is Misha an lasú brand an éagsúlach agus cumsú in Aontas na Maclean Oscail Cahar Baioclia. Is gníomhí mé is dína ná mé freisin tá mé nargasúlach agus is dína LADT mé. Tom ag réir le haidh factus mar Tom páisianta faoi carta sosialta, gníomhachas agus carta airaid. Agus rinne mé a lán factus a rith héal, Tom an cahirlacht an Anti-Conversion Therapy Coalition agus bhú míad factus an blin ó Bród na Gaillimhe. So to translate, my name is Christine. I am currently the Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion in DCU, and I'm trying to run to be your next VP for campaigns. I'm a person of color, I'm neurodivergent, and I am from the LGBT community, and I'm the chairperson of the Anti-Conversion Therapy Coalition, and we won Best Campaign of the Year from Bród na Gaillimhe, so Galway Pride. I have supported Trinity in a lot of their campaigns this year and last year. Most notably the renaming of the Berkeley Library, the boycott of the Buttery Cafe, and most recently their trans healthcare campaign. And I spoke about conversion therapy during their Rainbow Week in 2021. I'm quite passionate about activism, as I mentioned before, and if elected for BP for campaigns, I want to empower students so they know what USI is. We had a Yes USI campaign in DCU, and a lot of students that I talked to just didn't know what they were voting for. We need to put students first and make sure that USI can be a grassroots organization. That means we need more direct action and getting students motivated to actually go out on the ground. I think that USI should be doing more campus visits and talking to organizations like in Trinity, there's Student for Change. I feel like they might have more alternative ideas than maybe their own student union, and we need to just get those different perspectives. I also want to increase ordinary student representation on the campaign strategy committee so all students have a voice. I want to improve our communications because currently the USI newsletter is only for full-time officers when the newsletter should be open for everyone. I want SUT training, which is student union training, to provide activist training and for part-time officers to attend also. I want to continue the Cost of College campaign, asking for feedback from ordinary students rather than just officers. We pay the highest fees in Europe and international fees are through the roof. There's also the issues of postgrad students and postgrad workers. The stipend, it does not match the living wage. We need more people on the ground campaigning against the cost of college. And this is why feedback from ordinary students is very important. I want an all-Ireland lobby day so students from the north can feel more included and not making it Dublin centric and making sure that there's regional lobby days as well. While I want a national march to, oh, sorry.
Sorry, over 3 minutes. Sorry about that.
Sorry, no worries.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Christine there. So any anonymously submitted questions from my helpers? No, not at all. And just here's the form again if you want to anonymously submit a question. And if anyone would like to ask a question from the floor, cool. Oh, same three. So we'll do Jenny, Bev, and Gabby this time. And again, ask a question and you have 1 minute to answer, and I'll switch who answers first, just to make it fair as well. So Jenny, do you want to ask your question?
My question is specifically for Christine, is that okay?
Yeah, should be okay.
In your manifesto, you discussed your trans healthcare campaign, in which you want to distribute information and lobby politicians and GPs. What actionables can you hope to gain through campaigning and ways of supporting trans students on the ground outside of spreading information?
Sorry, I didn't hear the part at the end, but I think your question was like, what actions?
How will you support trans students on the ground outside of providing information?
Outside of lobbying, is it? Yeah, sorry. So definitely, as I mentioned before, campus visits is quite important. So that means actually, getting in contact with LGBT societies in universities. That's usually where you would find the most trans and non-binary students. So I want to actually ask their opinion because, again, I am not trans. I am from the LGBT community, but I'm not trans. So it shouldn't be really me leading this campaign. In Pink Training, it was really good because we actually did an email campaign there. But again, not everyone went to Pink Training. So not everyone got that email template. I was able to lobby politicians. So we need to distribute this information to member organizations, put on their own social media, but also USI needs to actually talk to students and get their opinions and ask kind of what are the issues that people are facing when it comes to trans healthcare, and working with LGBT organizations, whether they're in colleges or not. Like, for example, Trans Harm Reduction is really great. They're doing their own campaign there. And I feel like we should be getting points from them. Oh, sorry.
No, you're okay. You're okay. Okay. And then Bev, is your question for one candidate or for both?
My question is for Christian.
Okay.
Cool. So just firstly, an observation, you mentioned that ordinary students can't get the USI newsletter. That's not true. I'm an ordinary student. I received the USI newsletter. My question, though, is you talk about a national march to the Dáil and the USI Coiste College campaign, right? And you talk about how we pay the highest fees in the EU, but a lot of students, and in fact, the most vulnerable students in a cost of living crisis don't pay those fees because they're in receipt of the SUSI grant. Now, USI loves to say we should reform SUSI, but as Vice President for campaigns next year, if you were to be elected, what do you think USI's specific stance should be on SUSI reform? What should SUSI reform look like?
Yeah, so when I was a student myself, I was trying to get SUSI and I couldn't because of the fact of my parents' salary. So a lot of students are missing out because of their parents' salary. Sometimes their parents are retired And that means SUSI is basing it on their parents' salary from ages ago and not actually getting up-to-date information. So, and especially for estranged students who are not living with their parents, they're at a disadvantage. They're not actually getting SUSI because they're basing it on their parents. So that's kind of the reform that's needed, that SUSI needs to take into account up-to-date information. And for students who are working part-time because they need to fund, get food and stuff, they're also at a disadvantage and they're not getting SUSI. I was actually helping a student today with that very same problem, that they weren't able to get SUSI because of this. So we need SUSI to actually understand that, what they think that what they think their parents are getting isn't actually the realities, that students are
Thanks,
quite
Christine.
suffering. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then Gabby, is your question for one or both candidates?
I have a different question for each candidate.
Yeah, that's perfect. If you want to go ahead, do you want to ask Zaid first, just to give Christine a break?
Yep, cool. So Zaid, a lot of your manifesto and the points you're talking about are specifically related to campaign calendars, campaign strategy, and otherwise. But USI already is not a very good facilitator of ad hoc campaigning due to its long and cumbersome bureaucracy involved in the implementation of campaigns and the strategy of surrounding them. How will you react to urgent and time-sensitive issues in a way that is strategic and informed by students into the future, but also takes into account the urgent nature of issues that may arise on a day-to-day basis?
Very well. So I think we have to look at the structure of USI here to be able to see how good of a capacity they have to deal with ad hoc campaigns. Unfortunately, I do think that a lot of the work that should be done, for example, during the summer, happens only during the year. We see that with a pre-budget submission that only gets published in October, while main issues main decisions for the budget happen in June or July. So I'd say it's the structures that we're dealing with. Mainly, I'd like to define properly what the two committees in charge of organizing campaigns are actually in charge of, by introducing terms of reference at National Council of Dismay, to make sure that we have well-defined structures that are able to take on ideas and act efficiently on them, by making the campaign strategy committee concerned only with finding ideas and just theory for campaigns, and then the campaigns working group for merely applying without creating this conflict that is currently between them. So essentially just making our structures a bit more efficient and getting down to work as soon as we can during the summer to free ourselves up from the year-long campaigns that we can expect, and be able to take on ad hoc campaigns as they come.
Thank you very much. And then your question for Christine, Gabby?
Yep, thanks. So basically, this kind of question has two parts, sort of, if that's okay. So firstly, in relation to your point on engaging with campus focus groups that are not the member organizations, such as grassroots groups or other activist groups. Essentially, given that the MOs are the elected democratic representation of the student body, and this might not be the case for those students, may in fact in some instances be coming into conflict of views with those other grassroots groups on a variety of ones. And also may indeed hamper or cause kind of communication issues within it. How do you intend to proceed with that, and in terms of engaging with groups as well as kind of engaging with the member organization? Secondly, I suppose my question is in relation to what actionables especially do on the ground campaigning and lobby days hope to achieve, and how does this differ to USI's current failing policy?
Okay, so Christine, I'll give you that's essentially two questions. So I'll give you a minute to answer the first one, and then a minute to answer the second one, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. Essentially, well, USI and their member organizations are obviously priority, but because I kind of want to make USI a more grassroots organizations, that means I do have to listen to other students, and they might have alternative opinions to the union. But obviously, I'll be talking to the member organization first and bringing up these ideas. So just say, for example, this group is saying this thing, and I ask, does this go in line with Trinity's policy or TCDSU's policy? And if it doesn't, then unfortunately, obviously we can't work on this, and we just want to make both organizations happy. But the priority of USI is obviously our member organizations. They're the ones that are paying the affiliation fees. And that's kind of what USI is for. USI is for sabbaticals, but it's also for students as well. So that's why I mentioned in my manifesto that I want to beat the Union Students of Ireland representing students plus their member organizations. And can you actually repeat your second question?
Sorry. I kind of only realized after my notes that it was kind of two things. Cool. And then what actionables do on-the-ground campaigning and lobby days hope to achieve, and how will this differ to USI's current policy, which is in many ways failing?
Yeah, so currently right now, a lot of the lobby days, for example, they're quite Dublin centric. And if you went to the last lobby day, there was barely any students there. It was mostly officers. So I kind of want to have regional lobby days, which are quite effective. So the whole point is to bring the fight to the government. There's also ideas of having an occupation, which didn't happen this year. I think it was discussed in the campaign strategy committee. These sort of things get the media attention. It actually brings the student voice forward, and in a way it actually empowers students. So we want the government to understand the student issues every single day, and by having email campaigns or lobbying politicians or protesting outside government departments, for example, this actually spreads our message across to these ministers, so they can actually listen to us and get us what we need, which is affordable accommodation, affordable
Thank you, Christine.
Sorry.
Thanks. No worries at all. Right. And then Laszlo, do you have a question for any of the campaigns candidates?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I just joined. I was in a bit of a rush, so I couldn't join earlier. My question is do you believe that the USI should take a position of no confidence in the Irish government because of their failed policies relating to a lot of different areas? I don't think I need to outline those, and agitate against them at every single opportunity. And do you support the type of radical action that Trinity students have taken against, for example, Eamon Ryan last week and Pascal Donohoe today? And I was those radical students. I was involved in that.
Thank you, Laszlo. We'll let Zaid go first, and then Christine. So Zaid, 1 minute to answer that question.
I do think it's two questions, but sure. To answer your first question, do we think that USI should take a vote of no confidence? I don't think it's really my place to push my personal views, which I'm sure you're aware of at this point, about the government. Rather, I do think that USI should be ready if its grassroots wants to take a vote of no confidence or a position of no confidence with the government. Absolutely, we support the actions that happened against the ministers here. The alternative would have been, write to college, get them to cancel the event. But no, I think this sort of publicity is needed with a government that has been asked behind closed doors multiple times to do stuff to provide for students. It went back on the same manifesto, same pledges they ran for. And what I want to do for USI to be able to take a strong position with the next government is get pledges from parties when they run on what they will actually achieve, and then hold them to account to that when they get elected. So radical action, spontaneous action, absolutely. And we will, and if the response was similar to the one of our provosts
Thank
here,
you very much, Zaid.
USI should empower the union to go against this. Thank you.
And then Christine, the minute to answer the same question.
So USI has been around since 1959, and every single year it is supposed to be fighting against the government. So I know my personal views is that, of course, I have no confidence in the government. And I believe the fact that we're fighting every day and we're still talking about student issues, we're still trying to fight for free fees, we're still trying to fight for affordable accommodation. And there was recently an eviction ban, which means that more students are going to be homeless. I think definitely USI has to vote no confidence in this government. And I absolutely do support the actions of for example, Students for Change, and them protesting all these ministers that have caused students homelessness. These are my personal views, and I hope if I am elected to USI that I can actually get USI to be on the ground with these students, supporting these students, because ages ago, USI actually condemned students for doing these sort of radical actions in the past, and I do not agree with that. I want USI to be a more radical organization that supports grassroots.
Thank you. Right, so if there's no final questions for any of the candidates for VP campaigns, we shall move on then to the
Point of information, if I may, Chair. Just very quickly.
yeah, go on.
One of the candidates, Kieran, are giving a speech at a harm reduction, a drug harm reduction event, and that is the reason why they couldn't be here. Just for everyone to know why they are not here.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Zaid. Yeah,
I
it was
also
very
a point of information. I met Aoife today. They weren't really feeling it, so that's why they're not here as well. So
perfect. Thank you, Christine. Yep, I sent the information to the people I was told the information to, but then I was told no candidates were actually told about that. So I do apologize for the last minute of all this, but thank you all for being here. And I know there's some candidates who reached out and said they couldn't make it, but thanks for clearing that up as well. So moving on then to the Vice President for Equality Citizenship. James is here. If you'd like to speak to, I know you, James, is in the airport currently. Do you want to play your video, or are you good to go ahead and give speech here?
I think I'm okay. Is the background noise too bad, or is it okay?
It's okay for me. So yeah, if you're happy, we can go ahead and start your 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds just on my speech here. So, Dave, James Curry, Sanam Dunn, Tomin, Ugtron, Tanisha, and Ulster Technology of Bala Iclea, Angels and Mocklane. And I am running to be your next USI VP for Equality and Citizenship. So just a little bit about me. I was a part-time officer for societies. I was a school rep for science and computing. I was a class rep and eventually made my way up to deputy president of TCDSU. I was heavily involved in USI from first year. I remember the Raise the Roof campaign. I had been a USI Pink training facilitator on LGBTQ in sports, and I was also on the USI Constitutional Review Group this year. So there's so much in the equality and citizenship brief that I don't have enough time to go through all of it, unfortunately, but I do want to kind of highlight some of the big things I want to cover. So the first thing that I would focus on the second if I got elected was to set up the student advisory groups, and the group's aim for it is to help give direction for USI events such as Pink Training, Empower, Conference for Students with Disabilities, Women in Lead, so on and so forth. All these different communities, a lot of them which I don't associate with. It's important to have students who belong to those communities to actually be on these panels so they can give us the right direction. Like, it's them who are leading this, more to speak, and we're just facilitating it for these students. So that is a big thing that I want to cover. Another thing that I'm really passionate about is trans healthcare, and I know one of the previous candidates for campaigns were talking about it. So my partner is trans. He has told me loads of stuff. He was a previous sabbatical officer in TU Dublin, and he told me about everything about the healthcare system. People are up to 4 years on waiting list, which is ridiculous. The most accessible way for a lot of people who want to start hormone therapy is through the black market, which just shouldn't happen. It's ridiculous that that is the case. So my plans would be, I'd want to lobby the Minister for Health and Equality, considering it would be a strategic plan to try make the trans healthcare more accessible. And one good start I could see this happening would be to implement a T fund into all the other colleges. I know Trinity yourselves have a T fund, which I actually have information on. I got from your Welfare and Equality Officer, which actually helped us get our T fund into TU Dublin. So I'd be really happy to push that forward. There's loads of other things like sustainability, voter registration. I know sustainability, our own MO submitted a climate action plan motion, which got accepted at National Council. So I'd 100% be really excited to work on that. Voter registration, we have an EU election, we have a general election and an EU election next year, and it's so important. Like, we're already doing voting through our own student union, so I don't see why we can't push that for our own country and for our own nation. International student representation, I'd love to work with USI Coiste to develop a strategic plan on making sure that students who are traveling to Ireland are very aware of everything that's going on in terms of accommodation, travel, everything as such, because there's so many students who I've seen who come into Ireland blind nearly, and it's so upsetting to see that. So definitely more support around that. Students with disability would really—
Thank you, James. Sorry, that's your 3 minutes.
Oh, I didn't know I'd get a warning or not. My bad.
Sorry, no. Yeah, in future I will try and how will I best do a warning? I'll clap when it gets to 30 seconds. And apologies to all of the previous speakers about that. And that was a mistake on my part. But open the floor to questions. Is there any anonymously submitted questions? Helpers? No. No anonymously submitted questions. So let Jenny go first, then Bev, and then you have a minute to answer each question. Oh, and Gabby. So Jenny, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, hi everyone. Hi James. My name is Jenny. My brother is actually here. I just have a question in relation to your kind of your broader points on supporting trans students. Surprise, surprise. With particularly your your solution for what you're going to do in terms of trans healthcare is lobbying the Minister for Equality and Health. Unfortunately, we have seen numerous groups do this to no avail. What can you bring to the role to support trans students on this specific issue?
Perfect. Thanks, Jenny. And James, I'll give you a clap when it's 15 seconds till your time's up. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, very good question, Jenny. 100%, this is something that everyone has said. They're like, I want to tackle this, I want to tackle this. And of course, I'm no different. I think the way it is currently is ridiculous. One thing that I would really be interested to see with if I got elected and if the whoever the incoming vice president for campaigns is potentially to make Pride a protest, like actually how it was originally, and to really push like more, I suppose, campaigns on being like, you know, this is why it's not good enough, this is what it needs to be. Like, I suppose I would tie in a lot with the VP for campaigns to more kind of make awareness around it. And I'd also tie in with Tenny, because they have done a report, I think it was 2017. It was on gender identity. I can't remember what year it was, but I have the report that I've seen. So I'd definitely be working with Tenny and any other trans organizations to really just kind of push it out. I hope that answers your question. And local MOs, of course.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, James. And then Bev, can I ask you a question?
Yep. Thanks, Chair. So to the best of my understanding, the nominations for the USI Coiste Gnó closed on the 27th of February, and your name was on the ballot. Though it's kind of widely been understood since before that you had intended to run. You've answered a lot of questions at Hustings with, I haven't looked into that, I will look into that, or I don't have time to discuss this in my opening speech. However, voting in these USI Coiste Gnó elections takes place in 5 days' time, and you don't have a publicly available manifesto or any posts on your Instagram detailing what plans you actually have for the role. How can Trinity students, or why should Trinity students, when they go to the polls tonight? Sorry, did I cut out there? No, okay. So basically my question is, why should Trinity students, when they go to the polls tonight, put their faith in you to deliver on matters relating to equality and citizenship when you haven't been able to deliver any like publicly available information about what you want to do with the role?
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, it's a very valid question, and thank you for asking it. So I suppose a little bit of background is currently at the minute, I am the only returning officer for TCDSU. The rest of my team are actually rerunning for their campaigns, and the election is actually this week. So I'm also on the Electoral Commission, so I have to run through the elections as well. And also being being president, taking on the roles of presidency as well, on top of running my own, running USI campaigns. And I was ready to write my manifesto until, unfortunately, I actually was very, very sick 2 weeks ago. And I've just been kind of trying to play catch up with everything, not even just the campaign itself, but with just everything in my own union. So I do apologize for that, and I am really sorry. I had really wanted to push that out, and I do plan to hopefully get some more information. I'm going to be in London this weekend, so hopefully I'll be able to I have my laptop on me and be able to put more stuff out. But for anyone who has talked with me, they do know that I am very passionate about the role, and I will do as much as I can, and I will always listen to students, because
James. Yeah. Thank you.
Just Chair, a little point of order there. The question wasn't why don't you have a manifesto, but it was why should Trinity students put their faith in you to deliver in the role? It's like an opportunity to pitch to those students in the absence of having a manifesto.
Point taken. But yeah, so they kind of answered the way they wished. So Gabby, did you have a question, or?
Yeah. So my question is around the 27th Amendment and the fact that children who are affected by the 27th Amendment will be currently approaching age to enter college. This is an issue I'm very passionate about, but I've had a huge amount of difficulty in terms of lobbying, galvanizing support, or having public pressure in relation to it. What will you do in relation to this issue, firstly, specifically, and secondly, does the current student support scheme for international protection applicants go far enough to allow asylum seekers access to university?
Sorry, could you actually repeat it because it did cut out in and out a lot. Sorry.
Oh, cool. So this is
It's just my internet. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So the 27th Amendment, the children who are affected by the 27th Amendment are going to be currently making plans for third level education. This could prompt a litany of issues in terms of kind of access to higher education. I would also say that this is an issue that I personally am very passionate about, but I've had a huge amount of difficulty in terms of galvanizing public support, awareness, or getting political buy-in to be able to change it. So what will you do specifically on this issue? And then also, does the current student support scheme for international protection applicants go far enough? And what else what else should it include into the future?
Okay. Very good question. It's definitely a first question that I've had, and I have been researching into the 27th Amendment. So I suppose in terms of support, it'd be looking to, I suppose, reach out to the local MOs and the regional officers to make sure that all the unions are. Sorry, I'm really having a bad time trying to answer this. It's not that I'm unsure of what to do, it's I don't know how to really phrase it. And realistically, I don't want to lie to people saying that it's going to do this, and then you're going to be like, well, no, I know that doesn't work. I'd rather just say that I actually don't know, but I'd rather be educated by the SU, because realistically, I only see the problems that are in TU Dublin. I'm not going to see everything that's in other colleges. But I'm not saying that this isn't affecting TU Dublin, but I'm just going to say that I'm still not fully aware of how to do it, but I'd be interested to talk more with you about the issue if that's something you'd be interested in.
Thank you, James. And then Jenny, do you have a question for the candidate?
Yeah, I'd like to give James the opportunity to answer the question that Bev had originally asked in relation to why should Trinity students vote for you, particularly students, particularly oppressed students. What do you bring to the role that you deserve to be elected?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry about James. The laptop is connected from the Wi-Fi. Yeah, we'll just give you a bit more grace and do take a second to. You okay? Keep going?
That's okay. Yeah, no, I'm good. So yeah, so I've done so much work. I was even left, like the two officers that was working in Tala had resigned, so I took up the banner of welfare and equality and education. So I've been incredibly passionate in the student movement, and I just know that I have so much more to bring, and I really hope you put your faith in me. I hope that is enough.
Thank you, James. And then Chloe, do you have a question for James?
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me okay there?
There's a weird echo.
Oh, are we okay now? Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. So Equality and Citizenship runs a lot of events, as I'm sure you're aware. I just wanted to hear what some of your kind of practical ideas for some of these events are, because there has been some complaints this year over some of them. In particular, Pink Training received a lot of the complaints because most of the sessions were run by fellow sabbaticals or students, which in our union, we actually had a lot of complaints about this because they found a lot of the sessions to be unfounded and unsupported, and a lot of the information was actually wrong because it wasn't coming from professionals. So I'd just really like to hear your practical thoughts on the events.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant question. Thank you so much, Chloe. So yes, 100%. I have the same opinion of Pink Training. I think this year it was very awkward with how it was dealt with. Even as a facilitator, I wasn't really comfortable with what I was doing, really. So I do kind of want to reform it. I want to try get more professional people in there, but at the same time, if there's students who are passionate and do have the right information provided for a workshop, then 100%, because a lot of the stuff for Pink Training in the last couple of years have been very focused on like the sexuality part. There is some on gender identity, but I want to broaden more on gender identity. I know there is purple training, but at the same time, we do want to be inclusive for everyone. So my plan would be to, at the very start of the year, along with the student advisory group, is to push that out to the other MOs. if there is MOs that know people who I can get in contact with, or any students who know people I can get in contact with, then I'd be able to set that up at the very beginning and have a kind of calendar and a list of ideas of dates to let you know that, like, this is when ping training is, this is when Empower is, this is when this is. Because I know it was very, very last minute, like 2 weeks
Thank
before
you,
ping training,
James.
and we were all told everything. So 100%. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And then Gabby, you have a question for James?
Yeah.
Yep, just sorry, just make this the last question for James, just in interest of time for the other candidate's sake. So this will be the last question for James.
I would like to put to you and ask, with the absence of a full manifesto, I find it difficult to vote for anyone in any position into anything without a full manifesto, so we know what we are voting for and promises that can be referred back to. Why run in this race without a manifesto? And would you consider not running in this race with a manifesto and running in a by-election instead, with information as a consequence?
Sorry, could you say that again? Because I was a little bit lost there.
Cool. I find it hard to vote for a candidate without a manifesto that I can refer back to know what I'm voting in, and to understand what they can be held into account into the future. If for understandable reasons and time constraints related, you were unable to, for whatever reason, not produce a manifesto, would you consider not running in this election in the next 5 days and instead running in a by-election where one can be produced?
No, because I do feel that even though I don't have a manifesto, the points that I've made and the people that I've been talking with over the last 2 weeks for Hustings, I feel a lot of people have put their faith in me, and considering that I have won a lot of the votes in the other colleges, I would like to think that I have faith. They do have the faith in me, so I would not, it's not discouraging me from running. It is unfortunate, and I am really upset that I didn't have the time, and unfortunate how things have played out, but I don't think it should stop me from running. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. I'm not going to be like, you know, I'm going to pay you to, I'm not going to bribe people to like vote for me. If you honestly think that it's, you know, not suitable for me to be in equality and citizenship, then that is your decision. But I feel that with the amount of people who have already had my backing and the amount of votes I have received, I feel I am the appropriate candidate. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, James. And then we'll give you 30 seconds to summate everything. I know that's a lot of questions, so yeah, take your time if you want to just gather your thoughts before you get going.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the questions. And I know there is a bit of controversy around me not having the manifesto, and it's completely understandable. I am not like offended by that at all. If I was a student, I'd 100% be thinking the exact same. But in my mind, equality and citizenship, it is at the heart of the student movement, and the Irish student movement has always been at the forefront of the progress in Irish society. And I know if I'm elected, I'll be able to keep up that momentum that we have established for so many years. So please vote for me for equality and citizenship. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, James. And then we'll be moving on to Vice President for Postgraduate Affairs. It was just one of the candidates asked, could they be moved a bit later on just for timing's sake? So do we don't have Mohammed, we have Shahun. Is that how you say Shahun?
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Perfect. So yeah, just to run through, we'll give you 3 minutes as an open introduction just to introduce yourself and some of the points you're running on, and then open the floor to questions, which you'll be given a minute to answer, and then 30 seconds at the end to summate. And I'll give you a clap before 15 seconds before I'll give you a clap at 2 minutes 30 for your speech, and then at 45 seconds for your questions. Does that all make sense?
Yes. Would I have time to speak in Irish as well?
Yeah, so if you want to speak in Irish, I can give you double the time, so 6 minutes overall. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go when you're ready then.
I'm starting, am I?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Shakran Sardina. And normally at these hustings, I would give a speech, talk about my manifesto. I'm not going to do that today. What I'm going to talk about today is about breaking news that happened because of documents I leaked from Revenue. I've been involved in the PhD rights movement for a very long time, and today I received documents from Revenue implying that I have to pay taxes on a stipend already 22% below minimum wage. As I'm sure you know, PhDs have no workers' rights in Ireland. We're in abysmal situations, and this threatens to push us even further below, but at the same time, it gives us an opportunity to be recognized as workers. What I want to highlight today is that my candidacy, I'm the kind of person who will stop at nothing to make sure that PhDs, postgraduate researchers, and everybody else in the higher education system has a full set of rights that they can fully enjoy. And I did this in full knowledge that this is going to come back and bite me. This is going to hurt. People are going to attack me personally for this. It hasn't happened yet, but I would not be surprised if it did. But if you're electing me to this position, you are electing somebody who will never stop until these things are made right. And just today, I just saw 14 minutes ago, Sinn Féin leader, Sinn Féin TD Rose Conway Walsh has officially brought this matter up in the Dáil to bring it to Harris's attention, the attention of all the legislators. If you want change, if you want improvement, if you want to see a world in Ireland in which PGRs actually have rights, I can bring us there. So please, if that is what you want for PGRs in Ireland, I will be the one who can take you there. So, Commissioner Rotten Welga, Shamisha Shakran Tadina. Agus Tom concise Rochas, Harva Ashtach, Port Steve Inocht. Mar Shachas Lords Free, Morogra Hain, New Kirtar Inchinamsa. Tommy Giri Jury Stiach, Rudawan of Harlin Yov, Kumachane Jangle, the Revenue Punkai, Marger Le Stipends, August Pawn, the PhDs, August Nanirchem Hatai Georgie. August Share the War Mahane, Na, go costly on the Gahamwoods Each. Os Conachui Erin Major Ionswoods. Sneil Session Cartglow and Encher, Thomas Ficher do Nice Luna Patias de Chanahain. Och, is des show on your freshen, Mar Gilcanu Keranume Jago Hin, V Check the dollar Rose Conway Walsh, the Quid Sinn Féin of Lord Sadal, Marger Leshen Guest Shot, a gear your hair Skumiach Ahu Bound Lochach an Ibe Shot. Should a unsized Kumas August unsized Ahu a Toma Hain Contortion to USI, Knock Naily Mavriev, August Moaja Shin, Gawulma Sas to Golho Father Lasha, Few Mahain a Cornwell, Kun Esho a Kirkham Keen, August, Nis Moon Shin, Gold A50 on and Victor Few Sadal. Mas Enatal Wetcha August Tassa Gotor Son, Carton and Near Hemaha, Misha and Dinla Shin Yanawetsa. Gurmahagi.
Thank you very much. And then do we have Mohammed Moby? Yes. Hi, so just to confirm again, so you will have 3 minutes to give your speech, and if you want to give it in Irish, we'll give you additional 3 minutes to do the translation, and then we'll do questions afterwards where you have a minute to answer. I'll give you a clap at 2 minutes and 30 seconds just to give you a warning to finish things up. So if you're ready to go, you can head off in your own time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Mohammed Mubashir Said, and I'm the postgrad student officer at DCU Student Union. At the same time, I'm doing my PhD. So as Jeffrey has mentioned, that the PhD students right now are facing terrible situation related to their stipend issues. And as a non-European people, they don't have working rights. And I want to work for the PhD students for their working rights, especially for the non-European student, so they should be considered as a researcher, because all over the Europe and even all over the world, except some countries, most of the countries consider the PhD students as a researcher, and PhD researchers are working full time in a lab, so their working rights should be acknowledged. And the other thing is the stipend. Stipend is very low. It's lower than the minimum wage. Like minimum wage is like 11.50, and now in the PhD students who are working in the lab for 8 hours a day, they are paying like 8 hour or 7.8 or 9 euro per hour. So that doesn't make sense. So I want to work for their stipend increase, and I want to lobby for that. The other thing is about our postgrad students are the master by research student. Master by research students, research is not acknowledged, and they are unable to find the research collaboration opportunities. So I want to work to encourage their research activities within the community, and like providing some opportunities within their universities should make some legislation about the master by research degree, that how they can convert their mastered by research into the PhD, and how they can acknowledge their research. And mastered by taught student, like we have a lot of international students, mostly from India and China, and they are here in Ireland for 1 year of masters, and they lack the social activities. Like they just come to Ireland. First they face the economic accommodation crisis, and then they just start finding the accommodation, and after that, first semester, second semester, and the thesis, and they don't enjoy the student life. So I want to encourage people, and I want to bring people together for some engagement activities at the national levels, like postgrad sports league or something, postgrad Olympics. I have done some work within the Dublin, like in the communication with the TU Dublin and RCSI, and now if I got this position, I want to do it at the national level. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much, Mohammed. And then do we have any submitted questions for any of the postgrad candidates? No. So then we'll go with Laszlo, Bev, Gabby. Laszlo, is your question for a single candidate or for both?
Well, I would say for both. I think it's fair if both candidates get to answer. My question is very simple. Do you believe PhDs are students or workers?
Perfect. And before we get going, just a reminder, you have 1 minute to answer this question, and I'll give you a clap at 45 seconds. So we will start with Shahun.
Okay, very easy question, workers, period. To elaborate on this slightly, PhD workers and postgraduate researchers who are doing research deserve to be workers, and that means earning a minimum wage. This means that, for example, self-funded PhDs should be illegal because work should never be done for free. PhDs below minimum wage should be illegal. And PhDs that don't offer full workers' rights should be illegal. We are workers, we are all workers, and I will fight to make us all recognized as workers under the law. So, kan simply showing well can and progress simply a hort is Abraham wits. Gone cast. Just Abraham, period. Sinead. Kun fragre piesnis fridge hortwits. Ni huang Abraham wits, ach by hart gemiach laid ha eerste anja, in rure par in war tala anja, agus charte a profession, agus munwell shashin a gachwilla PhD, agus gachwilla taijo mastrach, neo hart gemiach de lachach in eincher. Go magat.
Thank you very much. And then Mohammed, are you okay to answer the question, or would you like it repeated?
Yeah, I just mentioned in my speech, like PhD researchers are working full-time as a researcher. So they should be considered as a worker, and they should be given fully working rights. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then Bev?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. My question is just for Jeffrey, if that's okay.
Yeah, should be okay.
Or Shahar, sorry, my bad. Basically, in a lot of your speeches, you've kind of neglected to acknowledge postgraduate taught students. And there's a strong, understandable emphasis on, the fight of PhD researchers for workers' rights. What confidence should postgraduate taught students have in your ability to represent them alongside postgraduate research students, especially considering that the VP for Postgraduate Affairs is a part-time role, which means you would be working less hours than an ordinary, another member of the Coiste. So how can they be ensured that their representation won't be deferred to the Vice President for Academic Affairs? And to this end, do you not think it could be more fruitful for the Postgraduate Workers Organization to have a memorandum of understanding with USI so you can work towards shared and common goals, and then the USI can also represent postgraduate taught students?
Okay, so that was a lengthy question. Are you okay to answer that then, Shahar?
I'm happy to answer all that. Yeah, I've got an answer. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I will try to hit on all the points you brought up there. So first of all, yeah, that's a mistake that I made myself. I'll own up to that. I mentioned this in the Galway Hustings, what my plans are to help with postgraduate taught students, which is in summary, and I'm sorry if this is not a completely exhaustive list, support at multiple levels for publication, for academic networks, and for applying and immigration. And also on top of that, support with fees, because the fees are far too high right now. At another level, support in making sure they understand what the Irish context is like, how to deal with immigration, what the standards there are. Those are things I want to provide. But the most important thing in all of this is that there is one VP for postgraduate affairs. There is the entire USI for students. Postgraduates as workers need to be represented by a trade union, and USI should facilitate PWO becoming that trade union. I will support top postgraduate students all the way, but at the end of the line, all of USI is there, and I work with all of USI rather than shouldering that all on my own.
Thank you very much, Chair. Oh, yeah, just in time.
So, Shin, Tan Cartugat August Neil Shishin Rocha Amsa Gafoliach, August is true more Shin, August Neil Shishin Cart. Confraga simply a horse quits. Sure, the Yanismet na. Kun of horch or have Natalia da or have Takieta Akudula da or have Naskani or Orbits ja August or have Tishkint or Engors in Imaka August Visa da Kun Gumiak Goholi Khanapub in on Tishkint Nihuan Kir Tarshulnerin och Kahwi Dol in Lecklash August Kahwi Gumiak Shidan on Ivy Lohablash. Och Tan USI or fought on Kun of a horch Sagasha August Neum so Wanatasha. I gas na nidlucha eirchéimecha is form so one atá and dual shin yada. So shin the discrepancy.
Thank you very much. That's your time. Thank you. And then Gabby, is your question for both candidates or one?
It's for both candidates.
Lovely. Yeah.
And it's quick. Just as obviously echoing the idea of research workers being workers and not students. Basically, how do you both envision the future of postgraduate research worker representation within student unions? Can they be adequately represented within student unions? And if not, how would research workers and students work together towards shared ends to avoid fracturing?
Thank you. And we'll let Mohammed start this one. So again, you have a minute and I'll give you a clap at 45 seconds.
Yeah. So my point is this, like, if you follow the immigration policies of the postgraduate, like PhD students, they are treated like the normal students. And like for the master students, they come here for the and they get stamp 2, and then after they graduate, they get stamp 1 on stamp 1G, and then they can get stamp 4, like fully working rights. But for the PhD students, they are on stamp 2. They are considered student, and they don't have the fully working rights. And for throughout the degree, like you know that for the PhDs, they have to stay in their universities as a student for 4 to 5 years. So that's a big time span. And the other thing is I want to make the postgrad working groups that to work together for the benefits of the working, like for the postgrads overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Shaheen, are you happy to answer that?
Yeah, very much so. Would you mind repeating that just so I make sure I get everything right?
Gabby, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is just with emphasis towards the fact that research workers are workers, not students. How do you see the future of postgraduate research representation within universities being shaped? Can they be adequately represented by student unions? And if not, how will research workers and students work together to avoid fracturing and to achieve their shared aims?
Okay, yeah, there's a lot involved in this, so I'll try to take this piece by piece. First of all, this is a controversial opinion. We cannot be represented by student unions in the long term. That is not something that's sustainable in any form. We need to be represented by a trade union. The PWO is currently negotiating with SIP2 to become affiliates of SIP2 and to try to become more of a trade union through that route. It is, in my very strong opinion, that the role of students' unions and of USI is to facilitate the PWO to fill this gap, because right now we are considered students, though erroneously, and it's their role to do that, because when we have our rights, ultimately our working conditions are student learning conditions. We have a very strong motivation to be on very much the same side here, and we are. In all of our experience, students and student unions very much want this to work out for us as well. And I would support a memorandum of understanding with all student unions and with the USI. However, we should not be represented by student unions in the long term.
Thank you. That's your time. Yeah. And if you wish to translate, you can go ahead as well.
Yes, if you will let me, I would love to say that in Irish. So yeah, so what did George Mahain na Níl cheart gombeach aontas na meiceáin ag seasamh go hifigiúil ar son na níl chéimeacha atá déine taideasa. Ar son níl siúd atá déine stáidir ó nós meiceáin bhil sin ceart glór ach na daoine eile bhí cheart gombeach siad únáideacha ag an PWO agus ag an PWO bháin mar ceart chumann. Agus by cheart in USI agus de gach aontas maiceáin cúna go chóid gon PWO gcóisteach sa tro sin agus aga le chéile trí memorandums of understanding agus le héad sin. Go Maki.
Thank you very much. And if there's no other questions for the candidates, I'll give them 30 seconds to summarize their points. And Mohammed, would you be okay going first with your 30 seconds?
So my point is like postgrad students are three types of postgrad students: mastered by research student, mastered by taught students, and PhD students. Mastered by taught students, for these students, I want to introduce some social activities and create the better student engagement, because during my first 1 year tenure in the DCU student union, I feel that my mastered by taught student lack the research student engagement activities. For mastered by research students, I want to create some research collaboration opportunities. And for the PhD students, as I mentioned in detail, like I want to work for their stipend increase and their working rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And then Shaheen, are you happy to summate?
Very much so, yes. Okay, so 30-second summary. PGRs are workers and should have full workers' rights. We should be represented by the PWO exclusively in the long term and by student unions in the short term. And while I am here at USI, if I'm elected, I will fight for masters taught students and taught postgrads just as hard as for postgraduate researchers, although in the long run, those two roles should be separated. So, Commissioner Ryan na tríhí le teachtamach as an hustings seo ná is ibrethe muid mar taidiúda ar chéimeacha, bhí cheart go mbeadh cearta ibre aine, ba cheart go mbeadh muid únáideacha ag an PWO bháin sa tochaí ach faoi láthair, ba cheart go mbeadh muid ag obair le aontas na maclainn, agus de main hain an mar únadí na maclainn ar chéimeacha, bhaina seasamh có láidir ar son iad atá muinse is iad atá déine taide. Go maith again.
Thank you very much. Those were the candidates for Vice President for Postgraduate Affairs. So then moving on, we have Vice President for Welfare. We have Colette. We have Colette here. Lovely. How are you, Colette?
Hello.
So, how are you getting on? So again, just 3 minutes just to do an introductory speech, and then we'll move on to questions.
Perfect. So yeah, hello everyone. I'm Colette and I'm the Vice President for Wellbeing in DCU Students' Union. I'm going to be your next Vice President for Welfare in the Union of Students in Ireland. So I've been a sabbatical officer in DCU for the past year. Before that, I was a psychology student for 4 years and I also chaired the Feminist Society. I really love my past 4 years in DCU, but I really want to use my experience of working with students on the ground with casework to advocate for change on a national level. So obviously, as welfare officers, we deal with situations ranging from finances, sexual violence, consent, mental health, and all that experience is important to inform policy. So obviously, the elephant in the room when we talk about welfare is finances and accommodation. We're in a cost of living and accommodation crisis at the moment, and it's on everybody in USI to advocate for change in those areas at a national level. So in terms of that, I want to push for purpose-built student accommodation on campuses, and for that to include specific accommodation set aside for students coming in on here or coming in on Susie. Then obviously mental health is a massive one in the welfare remit. At the moment, we know anecdotally and from counselling services nationally that the incidences of mental illnesses have massively increased in our age group and the struggles people have been having with their mental health. So I want to push for increased core funding of the mental health services, because for the past few years, the government have been announcing extra funding before Christmas time, but our counselling services can't plan for our needs when they're announcing funding so last second. I also want to do a national mental health survey because we ran a very effective one pre-COVID, but we don't have any data post-COVID now on the student mental health experience. And without data, our views on the fact that mental health has worsened post-pandemic are just not represented, and we can't lobby as effectively. And then obviously sexual health is a massive one in the welfare remit. We used to distribute thousands of shag packs nationally. So they were packs with sexual health information. And that was a really concrete thing that USI did for students on the ground at a national level. So we didn't have a funding for it this year. So I want to try and find funding for it next year. So that is actually something we can put back into the pockets of students. Then obviously the consent, we're on ESHD, which is the Ending Sexual Harassment Third Level Education Committee. 30 seconds. So our consent messaging is a bit outdated. So I want to bring it from 2003 to 2023 and make it less gendered, basically. So yeah, in summary, my manifesto is available on collectforwelfare_USI on Instagram. You can see the full document there in my link tree. And I welcome any and all questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Colette. Do you have any questions from the forum? No. Do you have any questions from the floor? Yeah. Do you want to go ahead there, Bev?
Yeah. Just wondering, Colette, what do you see the role of the USI VP Welfare being in terms of like supporting MOs, given that like there's not a lot of like consistency in when certain campaign weeks happen, and a lot of welfare officers in individual MOs like to kind of take like liberty or like poetic license with their own campaigns? How will you effectively help them with those campaigns happening at different times of the year?
Perfect. And you'll have a minute and I'll give you a clap at 45 seconds.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the question. So the way I see the USI welfare role in terms of campaigns is that I don't believe that we should be distributing graphics or running a campaign on the USI page, just simply because the reach isn't very far, just sabbatical officers see it. So when it comes to, say, Shag Week, for example, I want that to be like me on the radio or doing a massive lobbying push. But in terms of supporting officers, like I think that all the graphics should be created over the summer because so I will create support graphics because I know welfare officers, particularly with Shag Weeks, are crying out for support. So I want to run a Shag roadshow first of all. So that is a concrete thing for welfare officers that will be done, but also have the graphics available over the summer. So it's not a USI campaign, but there's resources available to MOs to do it themselves, basically. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Colette. Any other questions for Colette? I don't think there is. Right, you're free to go then, Colette. Thank you very much for coming along. Very much appreciated. And oh, sorry, yeah, you have your 30 seconds just made also before I let you go. Oh, okay, you're called college in the chat.
It's okay. Do you know what, Bev? I actually
it was autocorrect. I'm so sorry.
I butchered spelling my own name in autocorrect, so don't even worry. I know, that's why.
So
sorry, you're saying I have summation, is it?
If you wish, you don't have to, but if 30 seconds just to sum everything up.
Yeah, so I suppose I'll just use it to kind of summarize the kind of officer I hope to be. I hope to be relentless. I'm not just going to be sending off an email and being like, that's great, I did my lobbying for the day. I'll be consistent, I'll be relentless. I care about welfare, and I feel like I've built up experience over the past few years on the different welfare issues that affect students. I'm open to listening, taking different opinions, but I feel like I'm generally pretty knowledgeable in the area. So yeah, check out my full manifesto on Instagram, and I'd love your vote next week on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colette. As Colette Murphy, the candidate for Vice President Welfare. And then moving on, we have our penultimate race, which is the Vice President for Academic Affairs, very dear and close to my heart. But so we have sole candidate Brian O'Mahony from Southeast Technological University, Waterford campus. You want to go ahead and give 3-minute speech there, just introducing who you are, Brian, and just a bit of points. Go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, so my name is Brian O'Mahony, and I am the current Vice President for Education and Deputy President in SETU SU Waterford. So some things I've done this year is, as soon as I started in my role, quickly became enamored with the role of and student movement. So I got straight head in first with USI, wanted to keep on pushing more and more and more. So I'm on the campaign strategy committee, needs a lot of work, on the constitutional review committee, and also anytime QQI or NAIN has done a student perspective panel, like a webinar we did today, I push that out every time to really push out the student needs and rights in their education. So what would I like to do if I got elected? Just to put it simply, first thing first, officer support and training. People have various different times for crossover. Some people get 2 days, some people get 2 weeks. Some people's previous officer before them doesn't like them. You know, you can't manage how you can compare it. You need to have the officer supported. If you want the students supported, you need to support the officers. So it's about holding workshop trainings and having like little templates for campaigns and stuff ready for the officers, so they know they're never alone and they always have support behind them on the ground. As well as that, assessment reform, close and dear to my heart. Assessment reform needs to change now. With the likes of ChatGPT, we have never been in a stronger position to try and push for curriculum change and assessment reform. We are now in a position where people are trying to look at different ways from the traditional exams. Some are running back to them, some are looking to include ChatGPT in their curriculum. We are never been stronger to try and push this form now. Curriculum has to be co-designed by students, fit for students. There has to be an equity, not inequality, but an equity across the board for students in this. As well as that, SUSI reform. SUSI is out of date and it's just archaic. 4 times I had to appeal in first year, it wasn't working. I was living on a packet of biscuits a week trying to survive. When I eventually got it, great, fantastic, but it didn't even pay my rent, let alone lighting, heating, college trips, anything to do with the hidden cost of college. It wasn't fit for purpose at all. It needs to change completely. As well as that, paid placement. In a cost of living crisis, having unpaid experience is just free labor. When college courses are getting so large and you're going to have to go further afield, you can't go down the road for your placement now. You're going to have to go cross county, cross country, internationally. You can't do it anymore. So how can you afford it if you're doing that for free? Not everyone has the benefit of, it's very classist. Everyone have the benefit of having a good background around them to support them through college. They need to be able to be supported by the system around them. So I plan on being a relentless thorn in everyone's side, pushing and pushing and pushing until the college is for students, not by students, co-designed. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Brian. Do you have any questions? No. And then Bev, you've your hand up. Would you like to ask Brian a question?
Would love to ask Brian a question. How's it going, Brian? I've worked a lot with Brian this year. I think he's going to be an excellent academic affairs VP. My question for you though, Brian, is at Corlin Assunta, we have the Academic Affairs Working Group, which is where all the education officers get together, and it's chaired by the VP Academic Affairs. When I was on it, I found that it was sometimes unproductive because a lot of Sabats kind of used it as like a debrief session to talk about the particular parts of their job that they found stressful, okay? And everybody kind of held hands and sang Everybody Hurts. How are you going to balance this like requirement for peer support at that group with ensuring that the Academic Affairs Working Group can also be having up-to-date discussions about like policy change in higher education?
Perfect. Yeah. So I've actually looked at this myself already. I've talked to a few officers about this. Now, no disrespect on the current academic affairs, they did a great job this year, but I just think there's little things we can change in that regard. I think sitting around talking about local issues for the first, half an hour, sometimes up to the full, it takes up the full session. It's just unnecessary. I think that there is, if we had got officers into like little smaller groups and got them to write down their issues, talk about their issues just for a little bit, just to kind of cut the little circle around that we kind of get whirlpool, that we get sucked in, have that there. And if I tell the officers at like SUT, just to put an hour aside once a month, just after SUT, just where we can meet up after, where I can get all the local issues, digest them to solve the problems, and actually condense them into solutions that we can look at and work with and ideas for people to go ahead with. I think that would cut around a little circle and whirlpool and make more productive, National Council working groups.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Brian. Any other questions for Brian? Don't think there is. So we'll give you then, Brian, just 30 seconds if you wish, just to sum up your points. and we'll let you go then.
Brilliant. So I've been on the Campaign Strategy Committee, Constitutional Review Committee, QQI panels constantly. I love speaking to the different people's support systems within college. We're now singing off the same hymn sheet where assessment reform is the way forward. We're starting to do it today. On the webinar that I did today, it was 120 people in that webinar, different people across the world. We're all singing off the same hymn sheet. The time to push it is now. We can't be quiet and whispering and lobbying and sending emails. We need to be loud, fierce, and shouting for on the streets. We need to be co-designed for by students in college. Students left out of the conversation.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much. That was Brian O'Mahony from SETU Waterford, running for Vice President of Academic Affairs. So then finally, the big one we're left with is for the President of USI, Anuk Duran. So I don't think we have Chris here, so I think we have Sai running. So Sai, if you want to go ahead with 3-minute speech, and then we'll open up to questions.
Okay, perfect. Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Thanks, Zoe. So hi everyone, I'm Sai and I'm currently the president of Coiltas Maclean Oscailagaliva, University of Galway Students Union. I was previously a part-time officer for convener of science and engineering, same like Zoe, and a class rep twice as well. And this year I'm running to be the next president of Aontas na Maclean on Air USI. And I'm delighted to be finally here in Trinity virtually after 3 failed attempts this year. I just got occupied with issues at home. The accommodation protest camp out with over 50 students camping out overnight in the city centre. We also held a talk to a TD campaign where government officials, TDs and ministers were called by students for student issues and not just university framed questions. And these are just some of the things that I've done when it comes to direct action and representing student needs. And as students have mentioned to me previously, the actual number of students who engage with USI is minimal. And least to say, but it is shocking. I have no shame in saying that I personally am a student who in my first or second year have never heard about USI. I only got to know about it last year when I was a part-time officer, and even then I felt excluded. And when it comes to the role of the president, as we saw today with points raised by other candidates running for different positions, it really does get filtered down. And some might even think the role is just there for fame or to be in late show, but that's not true. And this year I would like to make USI as accessible as possible. And I feel it's time that we change USI from unionist sabbats, which what it feels like now, to unionist students. And I believe with your help, we can make this happen. And direct action is what improves engagement. And it's what made students like me get involved with the National Union USI. I will work day and night with the Vice President for Campaigns and the regional officers to ensure protests are held to amplify our issues in an escalation process, whether it be with car parking or with canteen prices. I will make sure your voice is heard and most importantly, that protests are followed upon. Which leads on to my second point, communication, as I feel communication is key when it comes to protests and the organization itself. I will work with SUs across the country to ensure that you receive all the information that you need to know what USI is doing and how we can work together to address the long-standing issues we have been facing. Whether it be lack of facilities, SUSI, accommodation, the cost of living crisis, I will work with you to ensure that your voice is heard. Last but not the least, before I answer all your questions, I would just like to say, while these might be the 2 points I mentioned today, my manifesto is available on the USI Congress website, as well as there are many other things such as SU relations, team management, policies and mandates, and much more. And that's it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sai, for that. Any anonymous questions submitted? Nope. Do you have any questions from the floor? Bev, do you want to go ahead and just to head up, Sai, you're going to have a minute to answer these questions and I'll give you a clap at 45 seconds. So go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. So you've mentioned at a couple of hustings so far in an attempt to appeal to like non-sabbatical officers and ordinary students for their votes that you didn't know previously that ordinary students could attend Comhairle na Siúnta, and you've pledged to make this a reality. However, attending Comhairle na Siúnta is not cheap, and MOs are sometimes not in a position to fund sending more than their sabbatical officers. For example, some MOs in the North can't even afford to send full delegations to Congress. Other than saying that you're going to facilitate ordinary student attendance via Zoom, which limits both students' experience and their engagement with Comhairle na Siúnta, what strategy do you have to actually make their attendance a reality? Do you have plans to amend the USI budget to facilitate this? If so, by how much?
Yeah. So perfect. Thank you for your question. So personally, while budget is a constraint and financial reasons are the same, personally, I feel like while Zoom does hinder the student experience, I feel the attendance is still important, whether it be through the online hybrid option or whether it be in person. As I could easily say that it's up to the MOs, but some MOs can't afford it, which I've personally seen myself. And even in our MO, we couldn't have been afforded last year. So I would still stick by that hybrid option is the way. And I'll still open to explore it with the finances, but currently I don't have that option because I'm not on the governance committee this year. But once I gain access to the accounts, I'll be happy to explore it.
The USI budget is presented at Corlin Ashunta though, so you would have access to it.
Right, that's separate question. Yeah, thank you very much, Sai. And then Lazo, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So yeah, hi Sai, how are you keeping? We've worked together on a couple of things like the no in-person exams, open letter, and that was great, and I really appreciate that. And that was when you were not a sabbatical officer. Just one question, the same question I asked to the VP for campaigns. Do you support taking a position of no confidence in the government because of their policies? Do you support the radical action taken against Minister Eamon Ryan and Pascal Dunoho at Trinity? And I'm asking specifically because I do remember that at the start of your term, there was a protest that you wanted to do against Minister Simon Harris, but then called it off at the last minute. So I just want to know still where you stand on that and where your political allegiances lie. Thank you.
So I'll take it in two parts. So I guess regards to my political allegiance, I'm not in any party or any affiliated to any party in that regard. And I guess with regards to radical action against TDs and ministers, I completely support that. We even held that event here specifically so that students can call themselves and actually call them out on that and actually lobby it themselves rather than asking framed questions or anything. And the reason we called off the protest was several other reasons, whether it be student engagement on September 1st or whether it be first year students not even on campus, and also regards to orientation as well. So there's other reasons in that. And with regards to supporting student groups like yourself, calling out ministers in Trinity as well, I wholeheartedly support that as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Sai. And then Gabby, your question?
Yeah, I have, is it possible for me, I have like 4 like short questions, but I think it would be easier if I broke them up rather than saying them all in one. Is that okay?
We'll go with it. We'll see. Yeah. Read them out and then I'll figure out how much time we can give.
The first question is, when will the USI pre-budget submission be completed under your leadership? This year it happened quite late in the year, so it's quite close to your budget. When do you plan on hitting the ground on that?
Yeah, so to answer that question, like previous candidate for vice president campaigns mentioned, it has to be during summer and has to be early on between May and June or in July.
Cool. My second question is that I think basically this is about the balance of sort of more localized issues like access to food or kind of pastoral issues in relation to welfare, which are of course very important. So things like, I know some things you mentioned were things like canteen prices, parking, transport, etc. I think there might be a kind of misnomer conflation between radical methods for which things are achieved and which are quite basic requirements, and radical ideas and lofty goals that the union and the student movement as a whole can aspire towards. So basically my question then is just sort of about, what do you think is the, what world is USI pushing for? Like, what is the big idea behind here?
So with regards to like, can I ask for clarity on that?
Yes, you're right. I should have wrote it down first. No. The question is, when we talk about radical student action or otherwise engagement, sort of, I suppose the best way to phrase it might be saying you have, realistically, say you have the best year possible where you feel like you were on top of your game or you feel like you're working well with your team or otherwise. What are the key outputs that you think USI can deliver within that year?
Yeah. So I guess when it comes to the key outputs is, first of all, that we need to bring it back to the grassroots activism that I feel USI is currently lost on, and what was the organization founded upon in the first place. So I think that's the main thing that I would like to work on together with the vice president for campaigns. And as well as that, also internal reform is strictly needed, as there's a lot of bureaucratic structures that are currently not working, whether it's campaigns or whether it's the entire structure itself is currently not working as efficiently as I would like to hope it to be. And another thing would also be to when it comes to the team management as well, we had 2 resignations this year, which is constantly outrageous, and there was no investigation held. So to actually ensure that team management is as effective as possible, as I feel if the team broke down, then we can't really expect to represent students. Thanks.
Thank you, Sai. And then is there more to your question there, Gabby? I might move on to Zaid just to give a bit of...
But I would have one more after, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, Zaid, do you want to ask your question?
Sorry, Gabby, I didn't realize you had one. But Sai, I saw that the University of Galway Students' Union is bringing a few motions, or maybe one, I'm not too sure, regarding international students' representation and issues that international students are currently facing. Unfortunately, USI fails to get this engagement from international students currently, because you see it with a lot of protests that they're mainly catered for Irish students studying in Ireland, or EU students even. So what are kind of the plans there to engage international students to make sure that, despite not having an international students officer, USI is an organization that has an eye on international students? Thank you very much.
I think you said it perfectly there, Zaid. Like, being an international student myself, like I know the issues that I have faced even to get an undergraduate degree in this country, and what kind of hurdles I have faced from getting a stamp 3 where I can't even work because I'm independent and I can't even pay my student loans. So seeing all of that, I feel that there should be more of a focus on the issues, especially around immigration, together with the Vice President for Equality and Citizenship, to ensure that not only that we're empowering student leaders, but also ensuring that they can actually run for the position, because there's no point empowering them if they can't even run for the full-time sabbatical role. So I feel that's the most important thing.
Thank you very much, Sai. And then Gabby, your final question there for Sai.
Yeah. So firstly, I'd like to put to you if you have any more clarity surrounding direct action. Obviously, direct action is usually something like, say, an occupation with a specific goal and end goal in mind, but the loftier ideas that the USI might aspire to might not be something that can be achieved on a very short time scale. So how would direct action work in conjunction with that? And then secondly, I think that right now there is a problem where member organizations essentially end up lobbying USI to fulfill their own mandates based on things that have been passed, things like National Council or Corla. For instance, things like being like key issues that have been voted on or mandated on, but because of the wide range of it, you end up firstly giving information to USI about that by concept, consistently raising it or trying to get it further. I'm thinking specifically of like misinformation in the USI pre-budget submission surrounding the 27th Amendment that came out this year. So my basic question is, with such a broad range of things you have to tackle, how can you ensure your team and yourself are up to date, aware, and kind of on top of things, on top of a variety of issues, and it's not up to member organizations with people that maybe happen to be passionate about specific issues to lobby on those issues towards USI.
Yeah. Are you okay to answer that? Sorry, that was a very lengthy question.
Yeah. So I think I'll take it in 2 parts again. So with regards to direct action was the first question. So with regards to that, we have tried different stages, and I feel there needs to be an escalation process, as there's no point saying that we'll just walk out and then what the outcome, no one knows. Still, I don't think anyone knows. So I think the main thing that we need to do is have an escalation process, is that we can't just go out and camp out first. We need to lobby first, then we need to call on what our demands are. We need to let the student body know what our demands are. Then we need to protest. Then we need to see what the following outcome is. If the outcome is unsatisfactory, then we need to continue on our campaign again, and then we need to bring up creative solutions, as we don't need all the time to get 200 people on the streets. There could be other ways that we can lobby, and other ways which have been successful as well, as we see with sit-ins, or as we see with the custom house occupation that was meant to happen but didn't happen again. So there's a lot of things like that. So that's what I would like to fulfill. And with regards to policies and mandates, the main thing in that, I feel that there's no point lying to everyone saying that we can finish all these policies and mandates in 1 year, as it's not possible. The main thing is to set aside priorities, what the student community needs in this year, and to tackle those issues. And I think 2 of them are really basic, like the accommodation crisis and cost of living crisis, that we need to tackle and ensure that they are followed up on, and the student community knows actually what we are doing on them.
So you're muted.
Oh my God, I'm on mute. Thank you. So embarrassing. Just saying, Lazo, you can ask a question, and this will just be the last question of the evening, just because we are under time constraints to launch our voting. And this will be the 6th question we'll put the candidates, so just don't want to be asking too much.
Oh,
But
I'm
yeah.
enjoying this.
Oh, sorry. Well, we'll see what we can do. Go on then, Lazo, ask your question.
Thanks. So one of the, hold on one second, sir. Thanks. So one of the roles of the president, of course, and actually every USI executive member, is to maintain relationships with the NUS, the National Students' Union in the UK. I would like to ask, what do you think of the dismissal of Shamima in the UK for alleged anti-Semitism, when in fact there seems to be no anti-Semitism, only her support for the Palestinian cause of justice? Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, just to answer that question. Sorry. So just to answer that question, with regards to Palestinian support or anything like that, I personally was in contact with you to set up a BDS movement in Galway itself, because currently we don't have one. And also with regards to that, also we actually set up a Palestinian society in our university as well for the first time anyway this year. So I would just like to say that I condemn it. That's all I would like to say. And she was unfairly asked to resign being pro-Palestine and is not anti-Semitic.
Oh, once again on mute. Thank you very much, Sai, for that. There's no more questions. We'll just give you 30 seconds to summate and give a summary of your points, and then we'll let you head off then. Yeah. So I actually forgot one point in the last question, so I'll use it in my summation. We also passed a deplatformation motion last year to deplatform the Israeli ambassador coming to our campus as well. I just thought it was important to mention that. And I think just to summate, I would just like to ask all of you for your support to elect me as the next president of Aontas na Maclean and Éireann USI at the upcoming Congress in Sligo and my full manifesto is available as well. And my email is su.president@universityofgalway.ie. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me. I'm on all the social medias as well. So thank you so much, everyone. That's great. Thank you very much, Sai. You're right on 30 seconds there as well. So that is the end of all the candidates who are available to come today. Thank you.
Chair, I'm sorry. I don't believe our position got a summation, and I think Christine is still on the call. And if it's fair enough, I'd like to do a summation.
Apologies. I don't know if I didn't give mention. That's oversight on my part. Of course, you'll be. I don't know who went first or last time, but if you're okay going Zaid, 30-second summation, just summing up all your points from before, and then same to you, Christine.
Well, thank you, everyone. I just want to make sure that I set the tone correctly for my campaign here. What we're running for is, first of all, regaining the faith of students in campaigns, make it apparent what student contribution and engagement in campaigns achieves with solid goals that we set out before we start campaigning, and make sure that our member organizations are empowered running their own campaigns, just like we do here, and like many smaller unions would like to do with the support of USI. Thank you very much, and please give me your #1 vote tonight.
Thank you very much, Zaid. And then moving on, we have Christine. You will also have 30 seconds just to make your points and to summarize what happened on this evening.
Yep. So sorry, 1 second. I really want your support today. I started my student movement journey in 2016, where we had thousands of students on the street bringing the fight to the government, and I want that to be USI as well again. I want that again. Obviously now we would like to have more regional and accessible protests, and that's what I plan to do as somebody who is disabled. I want to make sure that everyone is represented, everyone can actually protest, and everyone can actually summate their points to the government, so we can get free accommodation, affordable accommodation, free education.
Thank you very much, Christine. Sorry, that's the time. No, thank you very much. So that's the end of our hostings, everybody. Thank you very much for all your time, your patience, and for giving the candidates time to speak on their platforms. Thank you to the candidates for showing up and giving us your time as well. We're very grateful. And for any TCDSU members who can vote in this poll, the voting link will be circulated in the next half hour, so you should receive it very shortly. We will have the results on tomorrow evening, and we'll publicize and make sure we know what we'll be voting for Congress next week. That's the brunt of it. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And this recording will be put on the SU website under the USI Coiste Gnó heading. We'll just make that take a while because it's a it'll be a chunky video to put up there, but we'll see what we can do, or just make sure there's an accessible point to see it. So apart from that, wish you all adieu. Thank you very much for coming, and yeah, best of luck to all candidates next week, and well done for everyone for speaking. Slán. Woo. Woohoo. Cool. So it's on Connor's. So